Now, to forbear ever solitude of Irish trees and lily orangans, concerning the genesis of Harold or Humphrey Chimpton's occupational agnomen, we are back in the pre-surnames Prodromerith period. Of course, just when Enos chalked Hal traps, and discarding once for all those theories from older sources which would link him back with such pivotal ancestors as the Glues, the Gravies, the Northeasts, the Anchors and the Earwickers of Sidlesham in the 100 of manhood, or proclaim him offsprout of Vikings who had founded Wapentake and settled Hem in Herrick or Eric, the best authenticated version, the Dumlat, reading the Reading of Horfed Ben Eda, has it that it was this way. We are told how in the beginning it came to pass that like cabbaging Cincinnatus, the grand old gardener, was saving daylight under his redwood tree one sultry Sabbath afternoon, Hag Chivicus Eve, in pre-fall paradise peace, by following his plough for rootless, in the rear garden of Mobhouse, the old Marine Hotel, when royalty was announced by Runner to have been pleased to have halted itself on the high road, along with a leisure-loving dog-fox had cast followed. Also at walking pace by a lady pack of cocker-spaniels, forgetful of all save his vassal's plain fealty to the Ethnarch Humphrey or Harold, stayed not to yoke or saddle, but stumbled out hot-face, as he was, his sweatful bandana loose from his pocket-coat, hastening to the forecourts of his publican topies surcingle, solar scarf and plaid, plus fours, puttees and bulldog boots, ruddled cinnabar with flagrant marl, jingling his turnpike keys and bearing aloft, amid the fixed pikes of the hunting party, a high perch, atop of which a flower-pot was fixed earth-side. Hoist with care. On his Majesty, who was, or often feigned to be, noticeably long-sighted from green youth, and had been meaning to inquire what in effect had caused yon causeway to be thus potholed, asking substitutionally to be put wise as to whether paternoster and silver doctors were not thou more fancied bait for lobster-trapping, honest blunt, Harumfriedel answered in no uncertain tones, very similarly with a fearless forehead. "No, ye maggers, or war, just as cotchin on them, bluggy earwuggers." Our sailor king, who was draining a guglet of obvious Adam ale, gift both in Gorban upon this, ceasing to swallow, smiled most heartily beneath his walrus moustaches, and indulging that none too genial humour which William the Conk on the spindle side had inherited with the hereditary whitelock of some short-fingeredness from his great aunt Sophie, turned towards two of his retinue of gallow-glasses, Michael, Atheling Lord of Leeks and Offaly, and the Jubilee Mayor of Drogheda, Elcock, the two scattergungs being Michael M. Manning, Proto-Syndic of Waterford, and an Italian excellency named Jubilee, according to a later version cited by the learned scholar Canavan of Canmakenoise. In either case, a triptychal religious family symbolizing puritas of doctrina, business per usuals, and the perchy patch of Hamlock, where the praddish preeties grow, and remarked dulcely, holy bones of Saint Hubert, how our red brother of poor Ingrania would audibly fume, did he know that we have for Sir Trusty bailiwick a turnpiker, who is by turns a pike-bailer, no seldomer than an earwigger, for he can jump hill with his coat so grey, and his haunts in his house in the morning. One still hears that pebble-crusted laughter, jappy-chap, cheery-cheerily among the roadside tree, the Lady Holmpatrick planted, and still one feels the emotive silence of the Cladstone allegabelling. I've my's out, I'd born. Comes the question, are these the facts of his nominal gentilization, as recorded and accoladed in both or either of the collateral anthropomorphic narratives? Are those their fata, which we read in Sibylline between the fars and its net fars? No dung on the road, and shall no Hermia be our place like? Yea, Mullachi, our kingable Khan, we shall perhaps not so soon see. Pink ponks, that bail for Sikhs alicence, where some settlers with centaurs stay. Bear in mind, son of Hokma, if so be you have methigium in your mindness, this man is mountain and unto changes just one ascend. Heave we aside the fallacy, as punical as Finnegan, that it was not the king himself, but his inseparable sisters, uncontrollable night-stalkers, skirts erased with Don Yazeda, who afterwards, when the robberers shot up the socialites, came down into the world as the muses and were staged by Madame Sudlow, as Rosa and Lily Muskenket. In the Paltalime, the two pits pathrodosed, Miliodros and Galathy. The great fact emerges that after that historic date, all holographs, so far exhumed, initialed by Harumphry, bear the sigla HCE. And while he was only and long and always good Duke Humphrey, for the Hungalians, Spalpeens of Lucalozoid and Jimbers, to his cronies, it was equally certain a pleasant turn of the populace, which gave him a sense of those normative letters, the nickname, Here comes everybody. An imposing everybody he always was indeed, looked constantly the same as equal to himself, and magnificently well worthy of any and all such universalization, every time he continually surveyed amid vociferatings from the front of his accept these few nutties, and take off that white hat, relieve with stop his grog, and put it in the log, and loots in his basvoco boots. From good start to happy finish, the truly Catholic assemblage gathered together in that King's Treathouse of satin, a lustre-like, above floats and floodlights from their asbal velts, and ox-gangs unanimously to clap loud, the inspiration of his lifetime, and the hits of their careers. Mr. Valenstein Washington Semperkelly's Imogene Tours, in a command performance by special request with a courteous permission for pious purposes, the home droned and enliveneth performance of problem passion play of the military running strong since creation, a royal divorce, then near the approach towards the summit of its climax, with ambitious interval band selections from the Bow Girl and Lily on all hosiery, show command knights from his vice-regal booth. His Barcelona is sealing there with a cuckoo spit less eminent than the red rituals of McCabe and Cullen, where a veritable Napoleon IX, a world-stage practical joke piece, and retired Celtic comediant in his own wise, this folk's forefather all of the time sat, having the entirety of his house about him, with the invariable broad-stretched kerchief cooling his whole neck, nape and shoulder blades, and in a wardrobe-panelled tuxedo completely thrown back from a shirt well entitled A Swallow Wall on every point, fore outstarching the laundered claw-hammers and marble-topped highboys of the pitfalls, the pit stalls, and early amphitheatre. The piece was this. Look at the lamps. The cast was thus. See under the clock. Ladies circle. Cloaks may be left. Pit. Promer and parterre. Standing room only. Habituels conspicuously emergent. A baser meaning has been read into these characters, the little sense of which decency can scarcely hint. It has been blurtingly bruited by certain wisecrackers, the stinks of Moharat, or in the night plots of the morning, that he suffered from a vile disease, asthma, unmannerem. To such a suggestion the one self-respecting answer is to affirm that there are certain statements which ought not to be, and one should like to hope to be able to add, or not to be allowed to be made. Nor have his distractors, who, an imperfectly warm-blooded race, apparently conceive him as a great white caterpillar, capable of any and every enormity in the calendar recorded, to the discredit of the Duke and Kallikek families, mended their case by insinuating that, alternatively, he lay at one time under the ludicrous imputation of annoying Welsh Fusiliers in the People's Park. Hey, 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 hoch, 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 fawn and flora on the lee, love that little old jock. To anyone who knew and loved the Christ-likeness of the big, clean-minded giant, H.C. Eariker, throughout his excellency-long vice-regal existence, the mere suggestion of him as the lust-loose, nosing for trouble in a booby-trap rings particularly preposterous. Truth, beard on prophet, compels one to add that there is said to have been quondam fit, some case of a kind implicating, it is interdum believed a quidam. If he did not exist, it would be necessary quonium to invent him. About that time, stambouling around, dumbling in leaky sneakers, with his dark record, who has remained topontically anonymous, but let us hew him Abdullah Game Laxaxi, was, it was stated, posted at Malon's. At the instance of watch warriors of the Vigilance Committee, and years afterwards cries one even greater, Ibid, the commender of the frightful, seemingly unto such as were sullen, sated, chopped, head. Fiat, fiat. Waiting his first of the month foods, turned for that chop par cabacs, a look-a-by on the old house. The old house for the charge on Roch haddocks of Hawkins Street low. You blondie liar, Gob seen you in the market-place, and she what eateth at home, defileth these boils. There's a cabful of bash indeed, in the home of that meal. Slaughter let it lie its flattest, has never been able to convict our good and great and no ordinary Southern earwicker, that homogeneous man, as a pious author calls him, of any graver impropriety than that advanced by some woodwards or regarders, who did not dare deny the showmers that they had chin-ted, chin-tam, chin-taffed, that day consumed their soul of the corn, of having behaved with ungentlemensky immodest opposite a pair of dainty maidservants in their swooth of the rushy hollow with her, and so too the gown and pinners pleaded. Dame Nature, in all innocency, had spontaneously at about the same hour of the eventide sent them both, but who published combinations of silken lane testimonies are, where not dubiously pure, visibly divergent, as wapped from wept, on minor points touching the intimate nature of this, a first offence in virtu of innocence, which was admittedly an incautious, but at its wildest a partial exposure, with such attenuating circumstances. Garden Gadden Green, Where Soakman brideth girling, as an abnormal St. Swithin summer, and Jessie's rose showen, a ripe occasion to provoke it. We can't do without them, wives, rush to the rest of yours. Off man will tow man, while there is the lull. Zezid's Arcadum, Viola Peach, full a pluck. Vick up for Fleshnelly, El Mundo Nov, Zola Flen. If she's a Lilith, pull early. Paulina Lau, and male as a blushed, keep black. Guiltless of much lay to him, he was clearly, for once at least he clearly expressed himself as being with still a trace of his erstwhile burr sod. Hence it has been received of us that it is true. They tell the story an amalgam as absorbing as calcium, chlorides, and hydrophobes sponges could make it. How unhappy Augusti, hours of April morning, the anniversary as it fell out of his first assumption of his birthday suit, had rights in appurtenance of the confusioning of human races, ages and ages after the alleged misdemeanor, when the tried friend of all creation, Tiger Wood, rode staff to his stiff stay, was billowing across the wide expanse of our greatest park in his kuchu kippy and great belt and hide sacks and his blaufunks fustian and ironside jackboots and bag of fat gaiters and his rubberized Inverness. He met a cad with a pipe. The latter, the luciferant, not the orient, who the odds are is still Berting dagabout in the same straw baymer, carrying in his overcoat under his shoulder, sheepside out, so as to look more like a comfrey gentleman, and signing the pledge as gaily as you please, hardly accost with Guinness or tool, in Jew me dinner, oozle Finn. A nice how do you do in Pool Black at the time, as some of the old days may still tremblingly recall, to ask could he tell him how much o'clock it was that the clock struck. Had he any idea by cock's luck, as his watch was Brady's? Hesitancy was clearly to be evitated. Execration was cleverly to be unassoyed. The earwrecker of that spurring instant, realizing on fundamental liberal principles the supreme importance, nexally and noxally, of physical life, the nearest help relay being ping ping, K.O. St. Patrick's Day and the Fenian Rising, and unwishful as he felt of being hurled into eternity right then, plugged by a soft-nosed bullet from the sap, halted quick on the draw, and replying that he was feeling tip-stap, Q produced from his gun pocket his Jurgensen's shrapnel Waterby, ours by communism, his by usucapature. But on the same stroke, hearing above the skirling of harsh Mother East old Fox Goodman, the bellmaster, over the waste to south at work upon the 10-ton tonuant thunderous tenor toller in the speckled church, Quinnan's call, told the inquiring kidder, by Jehovah, it was 12 of them sidereal and tankard time, adding but all, as he bended deeply with smoked sardinish breath to give more ponders to the copper stick he presented, though this seems in some confusion with the chapstuck ginger, which of being sours, acids, salt, sweeters, and bitters compounded it. We know him to have used his jaw for bone muscles, blood, flesh, and vim vital. That whereas the accusation against him had been made, what was known in high quarters, as was stood stated in Morgan's Post, by a creature in yeoman form, who was quite beneath par and several degrees lower than your triple-hydred snake, in great support of his word, it quaint anticipation of a famous phrase has been reconstructed out of oral style into the verbal for all time, with ritual rhythmics in critory quietude, and to some end stuck from successive accounts of by Noah Webster, in the redaction known as the sayings attributive of H.C. Eowicker, prize on Stillings, post lots free, the flaxen Gygas tapped his chronometrum drum, and now standing full erect above the ambidjacent floodplain scene of its happening, with one Berlin gauntlet chop stuck in the hole of his elbowge, by ancientest sign law his gesture meaning E, pointed at an angle of 32 degrees towards his Duke de Faire's overgrown milestone, as fellow to his gauge, and after a rendy present pause, averred with solemn emotions fire. Shake, comrade. Me only, them 5-1 years equal combat. I have won straight. Hence my donation-wide hotel and creamery establishments, which for the honours of our mutual daughters credit me. I am willing to take my stand, sir, upon the monument, that sign of our redemption, any hygienic day to this hour, and to make my oath to my sinfulness, even if I get life for it, upon the open Bible, and before the great taskmasters, I lift my hat, and in the presence of deity itself, and well of Bishop and Mrs. Mitchin, of High Church of England, as of all such have said my immediate withdwellers, and of every living so whole, in every corner wheresoever of this globe in general, which useth of my British to my backbone tongue and communicative justice, that there is not one tittle of truth, allow me to tell you, in that purest of fib fabrications. Gaping gill, swift to mate earthers, stern to check self, diagnosing through ooster tube, that it was to make with a markedly post-puberal hypertituary type of Heidelberg Mannlich cavern ethics, lofted his sloping forward bad, Sweategore, Goodmo and Dublodge, onto it, as he was greedily obliged, and like a sensible ham, with infinite tact in the delicate situation, seeing the touchy nature of his perilous theme, thanked him for Gilbert's received in time of day, not a little taken aback all the same, that was owl the god's clock it was, and upon humble duty to greet his disc minister, and Sally Gill the gap, gaper, and he his mouldy voids, went about his business whoever it was, saluting corpses as a matter of course. One could hound him out had one heart, to for the monticules of scalp and dandruff droppings blaze his trail, accompanied by his trusty snorer and his permanent reflection. Verbe gracious, I have met with you, bird, too late, or if not too warm and early, and with a tag for idiot, repeated in his second mouth language as many of the big-timers' verbatims of words, which he could well be called to memory, that same Gveldir, ere the hour of the twattering of bards, and the twitter-litter beneath, between Dweedleed and the deep-sea sea, where supper-tide and souvenir to Charlotte and Mal jointly came gently and along the quiet darkenings of grand and royal, flitmads flew, and to crept a hedge, when as to many a soft-stung poorly talk, mood answer who suffer, Poggyhog, Arvander, all was acquiescent, while studying castells in the blown, and studying cow-shots over the Norren, he spat in careful covetousness a mosaic dispensation about his hearthstone, if you please. Iris Salava, more she drew whole, but would be a respectable, prominently connected fellow of European ascendances with well-dressed ideas, who knew the correct things, such as Mrs. Shalvir or Shalviloff. Expectorate after such a callous fashion. No thank yous. When he had his belcher spuckatuck in his pocket fuck, muse-fed with his sockets, after being supped of the dish-sot and pottage, which he snobbishly dabbed peachy Bombay. It is rawly only looking puckin pills and pie, which he knows which seen aft and pie but him, a supreme of excelling peas, boiled under manzoc milk into white malt wine sour, a proviant a little bilkers hoarsely relished, chaffet in the snaffle season being as fain as tas your rat with fennel, and on the celebrating occasion of the happy escape, for a crowning of pot valiance, this regional platter, Benjamin of Brius, with a Polish olive to middle point of its zenith, was marrying itself, porco grasso, erabusked, very deluxeously, with a bottle of Finnegans Wake, 98, followed by second nuptials by a peace porter, grand curve both of which cherished table lights, though humble the bouquet, to the learman's farewell, he obdurately sniffed the cobweb-crusted corks.